Howdy. My name's Mully, for those of you that don't know me. You just found me somewhere in cyberspace on YouTube. I just wanted to do a little spiel on life coaching, as amongst other things is one of the things that I'm quite passionate about doing, and it's one of those terms I think that it's a bit of a buzzword, but people really don't know what's involved. And you know what, it differs from life coach to life coach, but I've got some really strong belief systems and values and philosophies around life coaching. And I was on the treadmill before and I thought I really want to just talk a little bit about it, and then I started to get excited and I got on a bit of a roll, so I think I ended up getting off the treadmill about 10 times before I thought, you know what, just stop. Just stop, jot some notes and go and say it and see how it goes. So, you know, if you're interested, stick with it. If not, thank you for even getting this far. So the thing about me being a life coach is it's super important when someone comes to me and says, I want something different in my life. And it's not always the case that they can identify exactly what that is, which is completely fine. But it's to be somewhere other than where they are right now. And you know, that's a place that people can start with. The important thing for me in that moment is that this is something that you want for you, not what I want for you, not how I want you to do it, not what someone else wants you to do, but what you want to do for yourself and why. And you know, some of the things I jotted down was, why is it that there's something there different for you, and what is it going to mean to you to find this something and, you know, to land there, to create a space and to land in it. And that could mean something to you in terms of success, or, you know, my self-belief and my self-value, or what else did I write down? You know, to find peace, or, you know, some kind of additional value in my life, or just freedom to be me. And then steps in the coach. You know, and a coach doesn't necessarily have to be a life coach or someone like me. You know, it really is just important that this someone believes in you, like they believe in you, they're in your court, and that they can create a bit of space for you, you know, to find your wheels and get a bit of traction. So that can be family, it can be, you know, mentors or friends, but it's really important at this stage that person isn't one of those that detracts from your dream or starts to steer your dream in a direction that they think you should go and do things the way they think that you should do it. This is not a space for someone else's agenda. So the key for me here is to find someone, if you need support and resources here, that will hold a space for you that's free of, you know, their wishes for you. It's a space of utmost respect and compassion. So let's sort of throw in a little bit of an example. Is you come to a coach, you know, and you say, I want to go to the Olympic Games, you know, for whatever it is, and the coach is like, okay. The thing about that is that we've got work to do. We've got some work to do. So, you know, let's sit down and let's work out where you are now, what you have with you now, what you can do now, you know, where your comfort zone is in your space, because we're going to start to work into some areas of unknown and perhaps some discomfort to get you to there. You know, and that's what a coach does to you. And so we work on the space, and I say to you, you know, to get here, you know, we'll test, we found out that you're here and we can do all these things, and we've got you know, just chip away at little things, and what's important now, what do we need to look at. And those things don't always need to be with the coach. There's a lot of things generally that people work with and find out on their own. You know, and you don't need someone intervening all the time and sort of trying to skew or value add to something when you're finding your own value in it, and you're kind of finding yourself in there too. And then somewhere along the line we look at, you know, the chart, the direction, your path, and I say to you, you know, you're going to have to master a burpee. In fact, you're going to have to do lots of burpees, so that once we've mastered that skill, it opens up a whole new landscape for you in terms of things that you'll be able to do to move you towards your dream, and not just that, but to start to pull in other capabilities that you didn't know that you wanted or needed at the time. And we hit a snag. I don't do burpees. I don't do burpees. I hate burpees. And there's a resistance with the burpee. Wow. Okay, so noted. I understand that you don't like burpees. Can you tell me a little bit about why? Yeah, I think so. The first time I tried a burpee, I was in group training. I was quite young, and I was doing a burpee at sunset on the edge of a cliff. I'm not laughing at you. It's just the story I made up. I'm laughing at myself. I fell off a cliff at sunset, and I broke my arm. And the people I was training with, they laughed at me and they called me clumsy, and they were just really making fun of me. And they're right. I am clumsy and I really can't do burpees. So I wrote down some questions, because now we've got something significant. Not so much whether the event was significant, but how it's sort of blown up and a story is built around it. What happened? Okay, we did a burpee. So now I can't do burpees for a number of reasons, but mainly because I'm clumsy, and there's this big red cross through burpee for you. So, at this stage, in a coaching process, you might say, okay, there's lots of other things that we can do that aren't burpees. And, maybe we need to look at the injury. I mean, how's the wound on your arm? How's that, and I'm calling it a wound on purpose, by the way. How is that injury on your arm? Well, it's really sore, and I need to protect it. And it kind of, all these things impact on it. So I know that there's a pretty decent wound there, and there'll be lots attached to that wound too. Now we're entering into a space of burpee, and for a little while, for me it's important to let people come to that on their own. So we'll be in a space at the moment of I don't want to do burpees for a lot of reasons. The thing about protecting the wound and the burpee is that we don't just protect the wound on the arm physically. We've got a real aversion to doing burpees, as we've seen. But the flow on for that is, I still believe I'm clumsy. People still laughed at me. I've made it mean something about me that I'm trying to hide, so there's guilt or there's shame or, some other belief system that's tied in with this. But also, I don't go to groups training because I got laughed at. I avoid sunsets, because it reminds me of the time that I was doing burpees at sunset and fell off a cliff, and I don't go anywhere near cliffs. So now suddenly that wound that stops us doing the burpee is actually really stopping us from doing a lot of other things, and that's often going to stand in the way or just be, some kind of obstacle to you achieving your dream. Oh no. So how can we work around that? Well, really what's happening is we've started to see the wound. So we don't necessarily have to dive into get over it. What you're doing is you're taking one event that happened in the past and you keep recreating it and presenting it on this moment and probably on the future. So it's always going to be a place of anxiety, and I need to avoid any occasion where burpee might possibly be part of the process. So the burpee's bigger. It gets bigger and it gets bigger. And I want to know a little bit more about it, but as a coach you don't dive into that stuff, because you start to create a little bit of a cringe with people, and it really does start to highlight all the ways in which not only have we built up the fear and the story around the burpee, but the way that we will try to protect that. And I'm just wondering how I'll go into talking a little bit about it. The burpees made it mean a lot of things. So let's go. Something happened to us. We made it mean something. And we did so well at making it mean something that we will go through our life building up evidence and building that story up on how clumsy we are and how awful burpees are. And anything that disproves that, we kind of disregard as some kind of anomaly. But we built it up, and it's a big, ugly, painful, distorted story, and it sits behind us. And it's behind us because we don't want anybody to know about this story at all. And we then create a number of different strategies so that people will never see it. They'll never see it because they'll never do a burpee, never going to go and do group training. Think about all the things that you're avoiding because of that one thing. Why don't we just start working on the wound a little bit? Now, you can imagine some people actually do have a physical wound. It tends to radiate in one way or the other. The wound is here, but it's caused issues with my neck. my side and I walk a bit funny, and it has this sort of flow-on effect. So what if we just start working on some of the outside things? Like, what if we work on the wound? It causes fear. It makes me angry. And I will use a number of strategies on you to avoid it. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to get angry with you for even suggesting that I do a burpee. I'm angry because I don't like them, and stop trying to make me. And that's okay, because you know what? This is your journey. This is your path. If you want to leave that the way it is, you're absolutely free to do that. And from my perspective, completely without judgment, because I get it. It's going to start unravelling and unpicking kind of a big story here, and it's uncomfortable. If you don't want to do it, and we're still in that space of I don't want to do a burpee, that's completely fine. And you might go away and deal with your anger around that, and the next thing you come in and you might create, well, I wanted to do a burpee today, but my arm is sore. And there's another excuse that came up. It's avoidance, but that's okay. We know it for what it is. So we go away and we work on that little part. And then it was like, it's never been my choice to do a burpee. It's your choice, and I'm going to blame you, because if I do a burpee and I hurt myself, it's not my fault, it's yours, because you chose that for me. It's an interesting tale. So think about all the things that we start to do to surround and protect our story. And so nobody ever pokes at not just the fact that I don't want to do a burpee, but all of the reasons that we think exist on why I don't want to do that burpee. I wrote some things down here. Avoidance, the physical pain, and some things can present with physical pain, especially if you're in anxiety. Your body will manifest your thought processes and fears in a lot of different ways. The stories, the excuses, the fear, the shame, the guilt, the anger, the pain. Wow, there's a lot in this burpee. Well, what if we just start with a crouch? Like you can bend down and crouch. You go home and you work on that and see how you go. And what if you did? You went home and you went, wow, I can actually crouch. The first stage of the burpee, to crouch down. And I stayed in it for a while, and a few things came up, and I realised I was actually okay. Right here and right now, I'm okay and I have no pain. I was a little bit anxious, but I just walked through it. I just sat with it. And then I leant forward and I put my hands on the floor, and I started to take a lot of weight in my arms, and I realised I was afraid it might hurt, but it actually didn't. It didn't hurt, and I sat with that while I put a lot of pain on it, and I wondered if I could do the dynamic move into that plank position, but I'm not quite ready for that. And wow, you've done a lot of work on your own. So, let's talk about what happened with the dynamic bit. And that's really what coaching, in my mind, does for you. It will chip away, it walks you along the path, and you do things, you have lots of little successes, and you'll run into something that is actually quite a big barrier. It's bigger than what you think in terms of I don't want to do a burpee, because there's so much attached to it. But that's where a coach really holds so much value. If you decide to move from I don't want to do a burpee to I want to, but I don't think I can, that's where a coach comes in. Why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? When I say this to you, I bring this up, or I ask you this question, not just about what's the answer to the question, but how does the question feel? What's happening to you? Where are you going with that? And a lot of times the first response is, I'm angry that you asked me that question, because you're pushing me into that, that space where I'm anxious and I'm afraid. And, for me, that's the wrong. Let's walk through it, because, there's nothing happening right now. There's nothing happening. And then we get to the burpee, and I believe that you can do this burpee because we've worked on all the things. And sometimes the coach's role is to actually get you to the point where I know you can do it. None of that other stuff is even real. It doesn't exist anymore. The pain isn't real. The reasons behind it, we've worked through all of that. You can do this burpee now. You can do it. And even through your resistance, sometimes the coach will call that on you. You're just starting to bring your old habits back and your old patterns now. Just see if you can do the burpee. Just try. I know you're afraid, just try. And you do the burpee. And it was so easy. because you've already done the hard work. You did all of the work in the world to undo everything attached to the fear of doing the burpee. You've done the work. Here is the reward. You walk straight through it and nothing happened. And suddenly the doors open and you can see your vision. You can see it, you can taste it, and it's the success and the self-belief and the heart in that. You can see it. And not just that, it's bigger and more amazing than you even could have imagined. That's coaching. It just, what a wonderful thing. So I'm leaving this here to share with people. You find your space and where you want to land and start building it. And if you need someone to help you get there, who comes in and out whenever you need with the right tools that help you do what you need to do, don't do it for you but help you, then call on a coach. And the reason I tell you this is because I've fallen off the cliff, more than one. I fell. And I believed the stories, and I believed all the stories I told myself, and I put up all the fights and the resistance for years. And then when I started telling the stories and what was behind the stories, people looked at you for a couple of reasons. People will look at me and go, that happened to me too. And suddenly I wasn't alone. And your story isn't that bad. Your story isn't that bad. So if you've got something inside of you that wants something different without even needing a coach, don't worry about the burpees. Or do. And just leave it always as something that you wanted to do and you never did. People do. There's no judgment here. But have a beautiful life.